Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
If you're unhappy most of the time, and you're indoors when the sun begins to shine, you're bogged down with responsibility. When the good sun shines, you can come out with me.
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 270.
How do you do? The purpose of this recording is to introduce you to my new book set called Unconditionally Mad, Part 1 and Part B. First, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mark D. Arnold, and I am the writer of Unconditionally Mad. It's my job. My name is Mark D. Arnold, and I am the writer of Unconditionally Mad. It's my job to... I am the writer of Unconditionally Mad, and it's my job... What's so funny about that? Well, anyway, here's William M. Gaines, Harvey Kurtzman, Jack Davis, Wally Wood, Bill Elder, Al Feldstein, Norman Mingo, Kelly Freeze, Bob Clark, Frank Jacobs, Don Martin, Don Edwing, Paul Coker, Nick Meglin, Dave Berg, George Woodbridge, Mort Drucker, Al Jaffe, Dick DeBartolo, Sergio Aragones, Angelo Torres, Tom Bunk, John Ficarra, Tom Richmond, Desmond Devlin, Sam Viviano, Johnny Sampson, Bill Morrison, Susie Slab, and many more. And here's the publisher, Bear Manor Media. Available now through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or Bear Manor Media. The Fun Ideas Podcast is brought to you in part by Freaky Magazine. I contribute material to every issue, so give it a try.
Hey kids, have you read Freaky? The magazine of weird humor for freaks like you. Freaky Magazine is a way-out collection of weirdo comics, kooky gags, photo funnies, social satire, and surreal collage. 52 pages of insanity in the tradition of magazines of yore like Cracked, Plop, and Zap. Special offer for Fun Ideas listeners, get a free sample copy in the mail, made of smelly newsprint and smudgy ink the old-fashioned way. Just message your mailing address to theslowpoisoner@gmail.com. That's theslowpoisoner@gmail.com while supplies last.
Friends, have you tried Lee's Comics? Lee's Comics is better than the leading comic book store. Wait a minute. Lee's Comics is the leading comic book store, based on arbitrary standards set by Lee Hester himself.
Lee's Comics was named as one of the 21 best online dealers by popoptique.com. To shop the Lee's Comics eBay store, go to eBay and search for Lee's Comics Inc. That's LEESCOMICSINC, period. Don't forget the period. Mention the Fun Ideas Podcast when you order, and you'll receive a free bonus gift.
Hey, it's Charles Rosenay from the Monkeys Interview Show here on Monkey Mania Radio. So proud to announce the release of a brand new book called Not Just Happy Together, The Turtles from A to Z. That's right, the other band besides our Monkeys who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, The Turtles, a great new book that's a discography. It's got interviews, it's got reviews, it's got everything you might want to read about. If you're a 60s fan like I am and love the Beatles and the Monkees and the Turtles, Not Just Happy Together has a front cover and a back cover by Henry Diltz, a forward by Gary Puckett, and it's published by Genius Music Books, an imprint of Genius Book Publishing, now available from www.not NotJustHappyTogether.com. Hope you pick it up. I know you're going to love it and enjoy all the stuff about the turtles. Thank you for listening to Monkey Mania Radio. Hey, hey.
I'm putting the final touches on Crazy, the magazine that dared to be dumb, and we'll be starting a book on Plop soon. You can still buy my Mad books, Turtles book, and all my other books. I will be going to England for the first time in August, so I won't be uploading any episodes while I am gone. Please go back to listen to any of the previous episodes of this podcast that you may have missed. On today's show, we have a returning guest who's going to talk with me about the updated version of his book, Popeye the Sailor, the 1960s cartoons and all things Popeye. Here he is, Fred Grandinetti. Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and yet another episode of Fun Ideas Podcast, and today I have a returning guest who has talked about his book before, but now he has a new revised edition, and I'll let him talk about it. His name is Fred Grandinetti. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Mark? Nice to be on your show.
Yay! All right, we all know that you're the big Popeye guy, and we talked to you about Popeye before, but...
Better or worse, yes.
Yeah. But you have some exciting news about your Popeye the Sailor, the 1960s TV cartoon, so I'll let you tell about it.
Okay, I revised the book. I added a best-of section, which is usually controversial, and I also added some more background information about the various cartoons. And the reason why I did that is when the reviews came out, they were all generally good. You know, you get a couple of along the way, but that's what happens when you're in this field. But I noticed that a lot of the reviewers said, well, Fred's done the work for us, and now we don't have to watch these cartoons again. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, that's not the reason why you write a book on something, animation property, a film property. You know, you hopefully will get someone to look at the book to want to go back and revisit that property. But this cartoon series is so infamous, you know, as being bad, that it's like, okay, now Fred's listed all the episodes, he listed what's good, he listed what's bad, now we don't ever have to revisit them again. And I'm like, no. That's not what my intention was. So I talked to my publisher, Bear Manor Media, and they are wonderful people. I have to add that. They're really, really wonderful people. I enjoy working with them tremendously. And I added a best-of section. And I also went into detail regarding the cartoons. And this is something that a lot of critics may not know, is a lot of the cartoons were based on Segar's Thimble Theater comic strips from the 1930s. Seymour Nightel from Paramount Cartoon Studios actually went through the trouble of getting, you know, a 3-month-long daily strip, reading it and whittling it down to a 5.5-minute cartoon several times, and I'm sure that wasn't easy. And just the fact that they went to that effort to do that, to give the series a little variety, I think that needed more spotlight on there, and so I added that in the book too. And I also add a little personal information about some of the personnel that were involved with the films. So if you were happy with the first edition, I would strongly suggest you get the second edition because it'll make you even happier.
Well, fortunately, you gave me a preview to look at the second edition, and yes, I would probably get the second edition because of the additional information. But right now, I just have that additional information in digital form. But that's better than nothing. At least it gives me something to go on. And you mentioned something that was kind of interesting. For years, and I may have mentioned this the last time we spoke about this book, I finally whittled down after watching all the Popeye cartoons over the years. I realized there's just one cartoon I just really love. And there's more. You know, it's not just one. But, I mean, it's just one that just really stuck out in my memory. And for years, for some reason, I thought it was one of the late 1950s or just the 1950s in general, famous studios episode. And, you know, the different DVD collections would come out, and I'd watch the different shows on TV. And I go, I never see this cartoon. Where is it? And I start reading books with synopses, and I said, none of this looks like that cartoon. It doesn't sound like this cartoon. I couldn't have made it up. And, of course, since nobody really did the effort to, like you did, to actually go through all the 1960s cartoons, I was like at a loss. It's like, which cartoon is it? Well, it turned out it was one of these 1960s cartoons. And I'm so glad that you added in the additional pages here. It only hurts when they laugh.
Yes, that was based on a Seagar Sunday strip. Now, see, that's amazing in itself, too, that Seymour Nightel was able to take a Sunday page, a one-page gag, divided up into panels, of course, and turn that into a 5.5-minute cartoon.
Yeah. And I had no idea it was based on a comic strip story until you pointed that out. And I probably have read that before because, I had the Seagar reprints and the big hardback books, and it probably just didn't cross my mind. I just was like reading it and go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it may have to do more with, because you did point out that in the strip, his rival was a man named Curly, which I don't think we ever really heard from again, where...
Let me just tell you, the gentleman who does the Popeye Sunday strip now just brought him back about a week ago.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Are they doing the same type of shtick or deal where they're laughing and trying not to... and beating each other up?
Olive oil and I think sulfur oil took Alice Lagoon to the beach, and Alice Lagoon was self-conscious in her bathing suit, and Curly was being rather nasty about it. So the panel ends with Alice Lagoon about to slam her over the head with a boulder. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing I noticed, and like I said, it's like, wow, at least he got the one that I liked, because I was saying, if you didn't have that one in there, I would not only question your taste, I'd probably question my own taste. Because
that's actually a well-animated cartoon. I don't see any flaws, with that. And there again, this is what I don't like it when people take the series and lump it all together and say they're all bad. And that's what I was trying to do with the book. It's just, people have to understand so many different people were involved with the production of these cartoons that you're going to have a mixed bag, and you can't call them all bad. If you really, and this is a pain in the neck to do, but if you really want to judge them, you have to watch each of them individually and judge them on their own merit.
Mm-hmm. And, I will admit, and probably you would probably even agree on this, out of all the different various studios that worked on these cartoons, probably the Paramount Cartoon Studios did a little bit extra effort because they'd been doing them all along anyway.
Right. They had more experience at them. They had more experienced personnel with them than the other studios. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was actually kind of happy once I did rediscover this cartoon a few years back when I found it online. And I said, that's it! I go, oh, thank God it's one of the good studios.
One of the good ones.
Because I was saying, man, my memory, the only thing I remembered is, Brutus and Popeye hitting each over the head with, furniture and in, a cycle. So it was just, the same cycle going over and over and over. And then you'd cut to Olive saying, well, I guess they're doing okay. I still hear them laughing, And that's about all I remembered. And then when I did see it again, it's like they're chasing each other with giant axes and everything. It's like, what did I watch when I was a kid?
Wholesome entertainment.
Yes. I will say this. Now, a lot of people, and you probably have had these discussions with these Popeye purists and everything. Oh, the only good Popeyes are the ones that are made by Fleischer, or the only good ones is if they have the doors, or if Jack Mercer's mumbling and, the mouth doesn't match up. But, what do you say to these detractors? Is there anything you can say to get anybody to enjoy a Famous Studios or one of these 1960s Popeye cartoons?
I really don't think there's anything that can be said because, the Fleischers were so fantastic that naturally anything that follows is not going to be as well done in their mind. I don't think I can say anything that changed their mind other than that, just what I mentioned before, is to sit down and watch them and judge them for yourselves. It's the same thing with Seagar's comic strip. He was called the Charles Dickens ideas on how to carry it out. So once you start at the mountaintop, everything from there is down. You know, I mean, I understand what people are saying that, you know, you see the ones with the ship doors and everything else. Well, you know, a lot of that had to do with changing times, adding color, you know, simplifying the character design. I mean, a lot of decisions and factors went into that. Was I happy the fact that Popeye was wearing his white suit, you know, from the 1940s? And said, no, not necessarily. I wish he had stayed in his comic strip outfit. Do I wish that all the plots didn't focus on Popeye and Bluto fighting over olive oil? Sure, I wish they had more of a variety. But there again, like I said before, you have to take each individual film and watch it and, you know, decide for yourself whether or not you like it, and not just lump it all into one, oh yeah, everything that followed Fleischer was bad.
Right. But I think we might have discussed this last time, but we can bring it up again. You know, it's like they did bring elements into these 1960s King Features cartoons that actually never appeared before in any previous animated version. Like, I don't think the Sea Hag appeared before, or Roughhouse. You can name the other characters, you know.
Yeah, King Blozo, you know, Diesel showed up once, and they used Eugene the Jeep a heck of a lot more in those than they did in the theatrical cartoons. So, yeah, absolutely. And Whippy and Sweet Bee, the real Sweet Bee, not the same studios version.
Right.
The real
and I'm sure you went over in the book, but it's, you know, the original version of your book came out in 2022. It's 2024 now, so it's 2 years. I don't remember what I read. So can you talk to me about that? You know, it's like, what made the decision of, you know, including more of the comic strip characters into these cartoons?
You mean why I decided to do it?
No. Why King Features?
Oh, why?
Decided,
Sure.
Yeah.
That's easy to answer. They own the rights to the comic strip. And since they were producing the cartoons themselves, they were able to just dip into what they already owned. It wasn't like Paramount Pictures had to get a licensing agreement with King Features to use the characters in the Paramount films. King Features own these films themselves, so they own the characters, so they were just able to use them. They don't have to pay anybody but themselves, basically. And they didn't even have to pay themselves. So that's why you saw a lot more of the comic strip characters in those films.
Is that kind of the reason why they didn't use certain characters previously? That they had to...
Sure, yeah. Because Paramount would have to license the rights to use, if they wanted to use a film of King Blozo, they have to, you know, get some sort of licensing agreement to use that character in the film. You know, I'm sure they probably originally had the rights to use the basics: Popeye, Olive, Wimpy, Bluto, Sweet Bee. You know, they probably had to get the rights to use the Jeep. Maybe that's why he was only in, you know, 2.5 films. You know, 2 regular ones and a cameo. Maybe the same thing with the Goons, why they only showed up once. But once they became the TV cartoons that King Features owned, they were able just to use, you know, whatever was in the comic strip.
Ah, okay. I never really thought about it that way, but I mean, in a certain respect, that's kind of why I sort of preferred, I can't say I totally preferred, but, you know, preferred some of the King Features ones over the earlier ones, because they were trying to make it more like the strip. And, you know, and I had collections, you know, either in comic book or book form of a lot of those earlier strips, and so I was aware of these characters. I didn't know nothing for anything about licensing agreements. I just, as a kid, go, how come this character doesn't appear? You know.
Well, it boils down to money and what they wanted to pay for to use. That's probably why Paramount restricted the films to, you know, Popeye and Bluto fighting over olive oil in the 50s. You know, because if you notice what they did to Sweet Bee, they used the generic baby design. You know, so that probably had a lot to do with it too. They didn't want to pay to use the likeness of Sweet Bee the way he was in the comic strip. So they just went with their generic baby design that they used in other cartoons. And Wimpy, he only showed up a couple of times. So it all boils down to money, I guess.
Now, I also don't remember if you discussed this in the book, and if you have, forgive me. Was there any issue, positively or negatively, of getting the 3 principal voices that were doing Popeye cartoons at the tail end? Or was it just like business as usual? We're talking about Jackson Beck, Jack Mercer, and May Questel. Yeah.
For what I heard, originally they all wanted too much money, and King was going to go with other people.
Oh.
But then they couldn't find people to do the voices, so they just paid the money and got them all back. And there was one cartoon called See No Evil that Jackson Beck is not the voice of Brutus, it's Jack Mercer. So they may have been holding out for Beck. You know, maybe Beck wanted more money, so that's why they did this one cartoon just to test it with Jack Mercer. And I believe Jack Mercer said that having a conversation between Popeye and Brutus was too tough for him, so they got Jackson Beck to do it.
Mm-hmm. And you're pretty sure that that's the case. It's not like Jackson Beck had a sick day or something and Mercer had to fill in.
He may have been sick.
Okay. And I know you did talk about this, but I was just kind of curious again. You know, you can refresh my memory. So there was 230 cartoons made?
220.
20. I'm close. Okay.
Too many.
200 too many. Yeah.
That's why the variety of them is just so, you know, schizoid. There were just too many of them. I understand why they did that, but I think if they had done the standard 130, 150 that was being done at that time for most TV cartoon series, I think the quality would have been better.
Oh, of course. And was there a reason that they did them basically like over a 2-year period, right? Instead of like spreading it out for 5 years, 10 years maybe, you know?
They wanted to cash in on the Popeye mania that was going on at that time with the theatrical cartoons. And, you know, when it comes to a fad or mania, you really don't know how long it's going to last. So why not strike while the iron is hot? So let's just crank these out, get them done. I mean, it paid off the King Features financially. I mean, they were enormous financial success for the syndicate. I mean, they made oodles of money on them. They got high ratings. They were extremely popular. So as far as the financial end of it is concerned, it did pay off for them. But what suffered because of that was the quality.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like they ever tackled that many cartoons at one time again of any feature.
No.
And does a lot of that have to do with, you know, because they had to secure so many different animation houses and it was just a big headache?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Because I know even when they did like Snuffy Smith and Crazy Cat and what was the other, Beetle Bailey, you know, they only did a fraction of the cartoons. I mean, they did a lot of the cartoons, but certainly not 220. So, yeah. So, but it is possible or probable, and I think I've read this before, it did pave the way for later King Features productions. Like if Popeye was a flop, you wouldn't have had the Beatles cartoon or Cool McCool or any of the later stuff that they did, right?
Or even Yellow Submarine may have not have come along.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it, you know? So Popeye paved the way for the Beatles. Remember that, people.
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about your other book. You have another book over there. It's hold on here. He Am What He Am, Jack Mercer, the voice of Popeye.
Yes, I did that because something needed to be done for Jack Mercer. I mean, he's multi-talented, and, you know, when he was alive, I know he was a very, very shy person, and, you know, he really didn't call attention to himself and his achievements, but somebody had to. I mean, you know, nothing against Mel Blanc, but he wasn't the only one who had that skill. And plus, Jack Mercer did a lot of the writing of the cartoons, too.
Right.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that. You know, you see, you know, written by Jack Mercer. Well, that's not only, you know, the writer, that's the voice of Popeye and Felix the Cat. And, you know, Poop Deck Pappy and Popeye's nephews and Wimpy and so on and so forth. So I had a nice letter correspondence with Mrs. Mercer. And I told, and she had passed away, unfortunately, before the book was published. But I told her what I was planning to do, and she gave me a thimble full of information, literally a thimble full of information, and I just had to expand it on that. Because as I mentioned before, you know, he had to get something, he had to get his due somewhere along the line.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy to have that book, too, you know, and I'm just wondering, based on, you know, basically two really good Popeye books. I know you did another one for another publisher and stuff like that, but we're really just talking about the Bear Manor ones. Is there another Popeye book or even another animation book or voice-over book or something from you, or is this it?
I'm actually working on another book I don't really want to get into it because I don't want to jinx it.
That's fine.
But I am working on another book for Bam Media, and hopefully in about a year or so. But don't worry, as soon as it comes out, you'll be the first person I contact.
Okay, very good. Well, you don't have to say yay or nay, but I want to say it would be nice to have the triumvirate of voices from this series, to have a Jackson Beck book and a Mae Questel book. That's just my wish list, so you don't have to say yes or no. I'm just saying, I'm just floating ideas out there, and if I'm close on the money on that, I'm very, very happy, and yes, I'll be first in line, or one of the first in lines, to try to get those books, if those are what you're planning. So, anyway.
Okay.
Apart from that, is there any need or necessity for any other Popeye books that you think of, or is it all been kind of covered over the years?
No, in Popeye's case, no. There have been so many books out about Cigar Strip.
Mm-hmm.
They've been reprinted time and time again. They deserve to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to say that like there's too many of them. They deserve to be. They've also in Italy. They've been doing that too. I would like to see some books come out with the stories that were written by Tom Sims and drawn by Bella Zaboli.
Mm-hmm.
That's like nearly 2 decades worth of material that's never seen the light of day in the United States. And I think it would be nice if, somebody like Fantagraphics reprinted that material.
Mm-hmm.
And if they say, well, King Features doesn't have it in their archives, go to newspapers.com. It's all there.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if you didn't have the originals, I'm sure there's ways to get them somehow. But
yeah, because as we were talking about before, with the Fleischer cartoons being the top of the mountain, the same thing with Cigar Strip. Well, you really can't judge post-Cigar material on its own merits if it's not available to read.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it would be nice if someone just, took the initiative to start reprinting that material. You might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, there's got to have been some sort of interest in it, at least at the time when it was being made, or they would have canceled Popeye back in 1939 or something, they wouldn't have kept it going, and here you're talking about, you just mentioned, and I don't know the gentleman's name that's currently doing it, but the gentleman that's doing the current Sunday strips. Do you have his name off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Randall. The last name escapes me at the moment.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but it's Randall. Just go on, what is it, Comics Kingdom, go to their website.
Yeah.
And on a Sunday, and type in Popeye, and it'll show up. He has a new Sunday strip every week.
Right.
And he's merely making the effort to incorporate old Cigar characters and also old characters that Tom Sims had created.
Yeah.
Like he brought back Popeye's mother, which was a Tom Sims creation. She came out in the early 50s. He also he's bringing back characters from that era, like one-shot Cigar characters. He's trying to bring those back into the fold. He also established the fact that Bluto and Brutus are brothers.
Mm-hmm.
High Eisman actually did that when he was doing the Sunday, but Randy is embellishing on that, using that more.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I should try to reach out and talk to him. He might be able to shed some light. You'd probably want to hear about him.
He's going to kill me for forgetting his last name.
Well, maybe I can help you on that while I'm doing this.
Please.
Anyway, so, I'm juggling 3 things at once. I'm recording and I'm on here, but let me see if I can do that. Let me type current, Popeye
Sunday cartoonist.
Sunday.
Millhand, that's it.
Oh, okay.
All right, I got it. Phew.
So Raymond Milhand, is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned. I should try to get him on the show because But the other thing I was going to say is that some people might say, oh, they're just keeping Popeye going for licensing reasons and blah blah blah. Yeah, but they could also just reissue old strips like Peanuts.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I mean,
that's what they do. That's what they've been doing with the Daily Strip for about 30 years.
Yeah.
Reprinting Otegano strips. So when High Eisman finally retired, I was like, oh, God, I hope they don't do that with the Sunday page, too, but they didn't.
Yeah, and they very well could have, so there is a reason. And, there's some detractors like there always is, but, this strip has its fans. I like, what he's trying to do, bringing back the old characters and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm totally enamored with his art style, but, it's like there's been various Popeye artists over the years. I haven't been totally enamored with the art style, so I just kind of forgive that a little bit, and just say, okay, another man's doing Popeye. This is great.
Yeah,
And, it's like what I said, it's like if Popeye wasn't retaining any sort of popularity, I don't think we'd be even talking about it, or we wouldn't even have 1960s cartoons to watch or anything.
Well, I know that there has been a new creative personnel who took over King Features, I'm going to say about 5 years ago, and since that time, there's been a lot more activity as far as licensing in the United States. I mean, he's always been popular overseas, but in the United States, it's actually kicked up a little bit more, and that's due to their efforts. Like Boss Fight has been doing some action figures. They did a line last year. They're doing a line this year into next year.
Now, you mentioned this, and maybe I misunderstood you. They have not reprinted a lot of these later strips post-Cigar here.
Bud Sagendorf's material they have.
Well, I know that, but I mean, the ones you're referring to, Zaboli and stuff.
Bella Zaboli, and when Ralph Stein took over the writing and the from 54 to 58, where Popeye became an adventurer type of character with his British counterpart, the Pomeroy Vauxhall, and they traveled all around the world. They traveled to Mars, and Sweepy grew up a little bit, and he wore shorts and a sailor's hat.
Wow.
They actually
Never seen any of this, of course.
Up a little bit. And Olive Oil was kind of put to the side, and Popeye had all these beautiful women around him. No, none of that stuff has been reprinted in the United States.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Was it reprinted anywhere?
It's been reprinted overseas, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So they're not, unfortunately... Well, are there English language versions so you could actually...
No.
Wow.
No. Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, especially if you want to study this stuff. You have to go to newspapers, archives.com, which is fine. I'm glad it's there, but like I said, it would be nice if a publisher like Fantagraphics would just, bite the bullet and put out at least one volume and see how it sells.
Yeah. And, I'm of the schooling. I know other people would be purists, but it's just like with the Popeye animated cartoons. Fleischer only, Cigar only. Well, I would like to see what those years were like between Cigar and Sagendorf, just because I remember the Popeye 50th anniversary book, and they showed a few samples in that book. And I said, wow, those look interesting. Too bad there's only like 2 samples, and that's it.
I wasn't a fan of that book because it was basically a Vanity Press book for Bud Sagendorf. I know he wrote it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it was Cigar, Sagendorf, and what you just said. A little bit of the other. And if you're going to do a 50 years book, at least devote 2 pages to the other guys.
Yeah.
And there should have been a heck of a lot more of the animated cartoons, because that, in 1979, when that book came out, is still what most people remember Popeye for, is the animated cartoons.
Right.
Not the comic strip. And there should have been a heck of a lot more of the animated cartoons in that book. It was a good book, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But to call it Popeye the first 50 years, it should have been the first 50 years of the strip. Yeah.
And, but your coverage just now, just in 2 minutes of talking with you, I said, wow, those 2 minutes should have been converted into 2 or 3 pages of text to explain what was going on during those years, because, my impression always has been and still is, it's like, oh, other hands took it over, here's a couple samples, but then I came to rescue it in such and such date, in the 1950s or whenever he took over, and it's a great strip again, and it's like, well, what happened during those years? I had no idea what, you just said that it happened during those years, that Olive Oil was kind of out of the picture, and, they went on different type of adventure stories and blah, blah, blah.
Basically what happened with the comic strip is that when Popeye became so popular in animation, that's where King Features' attention went to, was promoting the animated Popeye, and the strip became an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go to make the more money? off of Popeye the strip or cartoons.
Yeah.
And it was cartoons. And that's where the majority of the licensing came through, was having visible on TV 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Just attention got diverted from the comic strip to the animated film.
Yeah. Here's one thing I don't even know, and it's probably a simple answer, but I'm sure you know it, but I don't. When Seagar passed away, did they immediately have somebody else in mind to do it, or did it go into reprints for a while, or just even stop being published for a while?
No, Doc Winter was their all-around bullpen guy, and he actually drew the strip while Seagar was ill.
Okay.
And so when Seagar passed away, Doc Winter took over the artwork, and then they hired Tom Sims to be the writer.
Okay.
And then I would say maybe like towards the end of 1939, because Doc Winter was doing another strip on his own, they got Bella Zaboli to take over, and it was Sims and Zaboli for the dailies up until December of '54, because Tom Sims is actually retired from doing the daily strip, but he still did the Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be wonderful to have all those compiled, you know. And it's
I have quite the collection of the Sunday strips, and they're all amusing. And also you have to consider that the changing format of a Sunday page. They had to drop panels, so there was just the changing times.
Yeah.
So naturally, it wasn't going to look like a Seagar Sunday because of the way things were happening with advertising and shortage of newspaper space. But they're all very entertaining. A lot of the characters from Seagar's comic strip are still in there, and again, they're worthy of a reprint.
Yeah. And did that other strip, Sapo, did that continue, or did that kind of go away?
That continued probably until like the mid-1940s.
Okay.
And then the toppers, Sapo was a topper at the Thimble Theater. Those toppers just kind of like faded away.
Interesting. If not Fantagraphics, it seems like that other company that reprints, I always forget the name of it, but, the American Book of Comic Book, whatever. They've done all the Dick Tracy strips, and they've done, Little Abner, and I've even interviewed the man that is behind those things. Maybe I should consult with him if Fantagraphics isn't interested in...
Well, the problem with it is I think that the general feeling is if it's not Seagar, if it's not Saginaw, if it's not Bobby London, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's because I'm co-founder of the International Popeye Fan Club along with Mike and Debbie Brooks. And we were asked all the time, where can we see this material? Now, right now in the news magazines, someone has gone to the trouble of pulling stories, and they're in every issue. So, but, for those who aren't members of the club and want to actually buy something, it would be nice. But there is an interest in this material. You just can't assume, like we were talking about before, you can't assume because it's not Fleischer, no one's going to watch it.
Yeah. Well, I'm even interested in the Thimble Theater material pre-Popeye, too. And I know there's been a few compilations, but certainly not in inexpensive, like paperback or inexpensive hardback collection. It's like these big deluxe, $200 jobs. And it's like, I don't really want to spend that much on these old strips, So I don't know. Well, tell me a little bit more about the Popeye Fan Club. Maybe I should be joining that if that's the case.
Well, it's located out of Chester, Illinois, which is Popeye's hometown. It's been around since 1989. We have members worldwide. And there is also a store in Chester, Illinois called Spinach Can Collectibles, which Debbie Brooks runs. And it's a Popeye museum inside of it. And Popeye material, new, old, that, people can purchase. And it's the main tourist attraction there. They have Popeye statues all throughout the town of the major characters. And that's Seagar's birthplace. So that's the reason why it's located there.
Very cool. And do you still publish a newsletter and everything like that?
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do a quarterly news magazine. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the draw for me.
That's one up on Mickey Mouse.
All right. That's really cool because, I as I've said before, I've been a Popeye fan since birth. Probably not to the level you have been, but, it's like as I get older it's like I never lost my interest in Popeye, but, as things come out and I discover new things, or I learn more things about the things that I've already seen, like your books and stuff like that, I get more and more fascinated. It's like, why do I like this character? What else is there of this character? What else can I know, and stuff like that. So I get all fascinated.
I get asked that a lot. They say, Fred, why are you attracted to this character? And I say, well, because he's an all-around good guy. Mm-hmm. He does good deeds without asking for any reward. That was, part of his character in the comic strips and in the animated cartoons. I can't think of one in particular where the opening scene is he goes to visit an orphanage and gives them a TV so they can watch him as a prize fight on TV. But still, it started him with going to the orphanage and, giving them a TV. And you don't see a lot of characters do that. I don't think you could picture Bugs Bunny doing that. But for Popeye, it's no problem. And, a lot of his adventures ended with a little moral, with his theme song. He'd sing like a little moral song. And where do you find that in other characters, too? And I think that's a strong essence of the reason why he's lasted as long as he has.
Yeah. I think for me, I just like it that, and you kind of said this already, is just that he's an all-around good guy. And that, he doesn't fight. Like, some people actually like it just because he goes out there and fights people. Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, but he has to be provoked. There has to be a reason. He doesn't just go randomly, there's Brutus, I'm going to just beat him up. It's like, and for the most part, he wants to be left alone. He just wants to hang out with Olive or, push the baby carriage or, go on some sea adventure depending on which version of Popeye you're listening to or watching or reading or whatever. And, until, he's provoked, he's not going to be sitting there beating people up. And there's a good moral compass for the character. I equate it similar to maybe original Superman or, just any character that's like that, it's like, in recent years I've been rewatching the episodes of the TV series Kung Fu, and you'd say, how does Popeye like Kane? Well, he is a lot like Kane. He goes from town to town doing his own thing. He wants to be left alone.
Yep.
But every so often he gets provoked, and out comes the fists and the feet,
Yep, that's very, very true, yeah. But there's a lot of similarities in what you say, yes, absolutely.
And then, there's the Incredible Hulk TV show. I'm not sure if the comic book was as much like this, but the TV show is like, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me if I was angry. And, of course, they get him angry twice every episode, it is a lot like a Popeye formula, that's made to live action. So, I think I'm attracted to things like that. It's like, leave me alone and you won't get hurt. But if you do,
Yeah. It's amazing when you think that for Popeye case, they use that formula in approximately 500 animated cartoons, variations. But the fact that we were able to do that, is a testament to his longevity and popularity.
Yeah. Well, for the longest time, I was always impressed that, until things like The Simpsons and South Park and everything else, Popeye was the king. There were more Popeye cartoons than any other character, and it's like...
Well, he still is the king when you look at it this way. The Simpsons is a half-hour show, but when you're talking about animated short subjects, it's still Popeye.
Yeah.
I don't think you can compare a Popeye cartoon to a 30-minute Simpsons episode. They're both animation, but they are two different things.
Right. And certainly of the Golden Age characters, so that cuts the Simpsons out, The only rival might be Tom and Jerry, but even then, that's a kind of a distant second,
Yeah.
So...
It's going to take a long way, I think, for someone to catch up with Popeye. Maybe somebody eventually will, but... I look at the cartoons that are on the Popeye channel on YouTube, and it's interesting. King Features will post one on a Monday, and it'll get maybe 300 hits, but by the following week, it's into 1.2K, whatever, with a million or something or other. So, people are still attracted to them, and they still watch them.
Let me ask you this before I kind of let you go here. What does to your knowledge, what does the future hold for Popeye? I mean, are there any movies coming out or TV shows?
They actually announced not too long ago, God help us, they're thinking of doing a live-action film. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't even know about them doing an animated film, because I guess when Sony wanted to do one several years ago, he didn't have a pipe, he didn't have tattoos, and I guess, I can't remember, Gene Teriyosky, I think that's his name. He was involved with the project, and the reason why he pulled out of it is because Sony wanted to change Popeye too much. And if you're gonna do it, you have to keep the pipe. You got to keep the tattoos. You got to keep the spinach. You got to keep him a sailor. Don't screw around with what works and what people expect. But they are planning on doing a live-action version of Popeye. We'll see how that goes.
Well, I mean, if you look at today's young people, they're all vaping, so it's like a pipe, and they all have tattoos. So it fits right in.
I guess so. So they'll be attracted to him. But seriously, that's why people ask me, would you like to see something new with Popeye? If they're not going to change him, yes. But if they're going to change him, no. I'd rather just live off of reruns. God knows there are enough of them.
Yeah. And any other like animated shorts, even, or TV series that you know about?
Not that I know about, but it would be nice if they could do some animated shorts based upon the Fleischer design. I'm sure there are plenty of animators out there who could probably mimic that quite successfully.
Right.
There was a Bank of America commercial that came out not too long ago where Wimpy was repaying loans to Bluto and Popeye and Olive Oil. It was done in the Fleischer style, and it was very, very, very well done. Very nice.
So it is possible, yes.
Yeah, so it is possible. Yeah, it definitely is possible if you get the right people involved with it. Definitely.
Right, and they could
Popeye
even
had his pipe in this too.
Yes, and they could even put the nods to the things people like. You have the doors and the ship, and have Popeye mumble a bit. Yeah.
Actually, that's how that commercial started. Well, I don't know if it started, but then it was included in the commercial with the swinging doors.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll look that up again because I do remember it once you said that. Yeah. Anyway,
it can be done. Like I said, it can be done as long as you're told, okay, we want to do Popeye, and we don't want to screw around with them and update them. Leave it alone.
All right. So that's our wish list. We want some Bill Zaboli books. We want some new good Popeye cartoons in the vein of Fleischer, and just good all around respect for these 1960s cartoons. There.
I have to tell you, I've been battling a cold, and I was in bed all morning long with no voice. But I said I have to have a voice on Mark for tonight.
Oh,
so
thank
I've
you.
just been sleeping and drinking so I have somewhat of a voice for you, because I didn't want to sound too much like Popeye.
No, you sound great, but I'll let you go because if you're ill, and just so you get better.
It's all right. It's all right. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, but I was pretty much wrapping it up anyway. I don't want to,
Okay.
But let's have you give a quick plug to your revised versions and your other books and anything else you want to plug.
Just go on Amazon, type in Fred Grandinetti, Grandinetti, and the books will pop out. But, anyone who has an interest in the 60s cartoons or anyone who got the first edition, I think you're going to really like the revisions and the second one, because I tried to really get the point out there that revisit the cartoons. Don't just think, oh, they're all crap. Now I've given you more of a reason to say, well, he thinks this is a real good one. Let me go back and take a look at it. So prove me wrong. Go back.
And anything else you want to plug, or any appearances you're going to make, or anything like that? Or?
No, that's pretty much it at the moment, other than to thank you once again for having me on your program. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Fred. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again when some new Popeye book or project comes out from you or someone else. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, when I give birth to it, I'll let you know. Don't worry about that.
All right. Don't have too hard of a labor, though. Okay.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Fred Grandinetti, for being my special guest. Episode number 271 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a free subscriber or a paying Patreon at Mark Arnold Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, it would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. The opening and closing music for this podcast is provided by Elmo and Elmo. This has been the Fun Ideas Podcast.
This has been Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2024 Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you and good night.
If you're unhappy most of the time, and you're indoors when the sun begins to shine, you're bogged down with responsibility when the good sun shines.